Welcome to the Further Light Podcast, presented by Wisconsin Freemasonry, helping you accomplish your Masonic goals through education and more light. And now, I present to you, Brother Chris Ludke.
Listeners, scholars, brothers, this is Brother Chris Ludke, and today I want to talk about your stuff. Well, the lodge's stuff. Well, stuff in general. It seems like the right time of year to do it. It's the time of year when we're all focused on stuff. We're trying to assign value to our loved ones. Sorry, that's Christmas, but you get the idea. So what I've been looking at is this article by Worshipful Brother Jan Talaga. And Jan Talaga is writing about stuff. And it seems like a great springboard into another conversation of how we deal with stuff in general in the lodge. So let's get into it. And I'm going to get into this. Again, this is by Worshipful Brother Jan Talaga. And the article is entitled, "Is it Historic Antique or Just Plain Old?" And this is in the December edition of the Masonic Journal. Quote, "Now here is something we can all relate to. Your lodge has a couch, miscellaneous furniture, etc. that has been deteriorating for years now. And you finally step up and say something. And you are immediately shot down by some senior brother. You're about to get a lesson in the history of the lodge, whether you like it or not. You can't throw out that couch. Brother Johnson," could be his real name, "donated it to the lodge in 1978. You know how we remember the date? The dedication plaque on the wall above the couch says so. We can't get rid of that. It would be a slap in the face to the brother. Now for the real story, or the rest of the story if you're a Paul Harvey fan, about that infamous couch. Miss Johnson was tired of that old couch in her living room and wanted to freshen up the room with some light remodeling. That's right, the couch is an eyesore and has to go. But Mr. or Brother Johnson thinks nothing is wrong with the couch and can't see himself just throwing it out. Then he has a great idea. I'll just donate it to the lodge. I have the perfect spot for it. So he brings it to the lodge where other brothers sympathize with him, and they too think the couch is a great addition to the lodge. Yep, there's safety in numbers. The couch is now at the lodge. Miss Johnson doesn't care. It's already out of the house. The brothers make the announcement at the next day of meeting. A round of applause follows, along with the unanimous recommendation that the lodge orders and installs a plaque to commemorate the brothers' generosity. Yes, this is based on a true story. I've seen those plaques. Well, as an aside, I've seen them too. They're all over the place sometimes. And I know for a fact that this has happened more than once. Possibly it's happened at your lodge. Just ask around. But don't push too hard, or you too will get that lodge history lesson. Now, brothers, we all appreciate the generosity of a fellow brother, but sometimes we need to face reality and recognize that our lodge is slowly becoming a final resting place for furniture that has seen better days. As an aside, at Waukesha, for a long time, we had a set of couches. They were very comfortable, although slightly disturbing couches, if you're familiar with the history of the lodge, that sat in our parlor. They were fantastic, but they were definitely from the 1960s or 70s, and there was definitely a Brother Johnson or whatever other name that gave them to the lodge at some point, going, you know what? These would be perfect down at the lodge. And it took an amazing amount of work to actually get rid of them. That discussion probably went on for 5 years before sometime, at some point, someone just disappeared them overnight or during a work day. And this can happen. But the fact that it took us years to do it becomes an issue. Do we want to be on the next episode of Fraternal Hoarders? Look around lodges. the materials that we have reflect who we are. How would we like someone coming in to see that old couch and go, oh, it really is a bunch of old guys who meet in a condemned building that's only open 2 days a month? Sorry, but that's what many members of the community might think of some of these lodges that aren't used on a regular basis. So let's look at this article a little bit further. Getting back to the article. Now, brothers, we all appreciate the generosity of a fellow brother, but sometimes we need to face reality and recognize that our lodge is slowly becoming a final resting place for furniture that has seen better days. Is the furniture recognized as antique? Does it have some historic significance? If so, that changes the story. And again, stepping aside from the article, if that's a situation, if that's something that you're concerned with, there are people you can contact. There are art and antique appraisers. I used to work as an art and antique appraiser, still do. And if this is something that your lodge is coming up against, email me a picture. Send it to education@WI Masons. I'll take a look at it and let you know what you have. I'm not going to charge you for it. At the end of the day, 99% of the time, there isn't any historical significance. There isn't any value. Yes, there is that 1%, but it is exceptionally rare. In my experience going through lodges, we tend to conflate sentimental value or age for actual value, for what something is really worth. And on the marketplace, those values change. There was a time when a massive piece of furniture might bring in $10,000, $20,000, $30,000. It's also possible that today, because of changes in style, living situations, etc., that nowadays that same piece is only worth a couple of $1,000s or maybe several hundred. Things go in and out of style all the time. And usually if it was donated recently enough that you still have it, there's a decent chance that it falls into that category of something that doesn't have a great deal of value. So back to our article. As we move into the future of Wisconsin Freemasonry with updated branding, a more visible public presence, and re-engagement with our community, we also need to take a good look at ourselves and address our buildings. You would be amazed what a new coat of paint, updated lighting, and a deep clean will do for the appearance of our building. But as we do this, let's look at the furniture too. Oddly shaped, mismatched, conflicting colors, ripped, torn, broken. We have all these pieces, and it's almost taboo to talk about, but the time is here. Let's talk about it. Rip off the Band-Aid. Get rid of the furniture graveyard. And by the way, it's not just furniture. TVs, computers. How much stuff do we have jammed into attics? Or the secretary's office, which seems to be a catch-all these days. There are a lot of places where we will find a lot of stuff. And stuff is a problem. Brother Johnson wouldn't mind. After all, he too had to decide if it was going to the dump or the lodge. We can replace them with something that is intentionally designed and matches. I've seen several lodges do this, and it looks great. But don't worry, Brother Johnson. We'll keep the plaque. But it won't be on the wall anymore. It'll be laid up in the archives of the lodge forever. Something that Worshipful Brother Talaga says that he will address in another episode or another article. And we need to look at what we have in the building. If you walk in and you see something that looks like your great-grandmother's couch, what sort of reaction are you going to have if you're a young man in his 30s or 40s looking to join the lodge? What's your reaction going to be when you notice that the brothers really don't sit on that couch and you start wondering why? Let's question these things. Let's look at them. Let's go through those attics, those archives, those spaces. And on another note, apart from appraisal, most lodges also don't have inventories of what they have. Imagine if there was an insurance claim. Imagine if your lodge burned down, flooded, was infested with locusts. And suddenly you find yourself making a claim. How many of you would be able to list what you have? Sure, you could think about 7 copies of Mackey's Encyclopedia of Freemasonry. By the way, that's a pretty safe number for any lodge. Or, hey, we had this beautiful altar, although we have no pictures of it, and there's nothing but ash, so we don't know what it looked like or what attributes it might have. Or we had a worshipful master's chair. When we're looking at this stuff, not only do we have to think about the things that we should get rid of, that should be sent off to the dump, but it's a time to safeguard what we have. And I strongly recommend in every lodge, the easiest way to deal with the insurance issue, to deal with how do we list these things, is first of all to walk around the lodge, the entire building, opening up every door, every box, and do it on video so that someone can look at that video down the line, give it to several people, put it on the cloud in several areas, several places. And what you want to do is video everything that you own so that if there's ever a claim, if suddenly your lodge it burns down during a sewer backup during the 7 plagues, you can just watch the video and go, okay, we had one altar, it looks like this. And you can give it to your insurance person and they can take care of it. You can also, and a better way to do this would be to make a list, an inventory of everything in the lodge, as well as a photograph of everything in the lodge. You don't have to price it. Just describe it. What is it? It's an altar. It's this size. Measure it out. If you know the style, fantastic. That will help if there's ever a claim so that you can get the appropriate amount back. These are all safeguards. And so not only do we have to question the stuff that we keep, I mean, why do we have a box that has never been opened sitting up in the attic that probably has 2 desiccated bats and a dried up bird in it, along with whatever other papers? Why is it there? Go through it, look at it. There's certain things that are sacred that should not be gotten rid of. Anything that is historical, the minutes, the ledgers, etc., keep those. They don't take up much space anyway. But do we need to keep the extra chairs that no one's touched in 53 years? Do we need to keep the extra dishes that have been in a box in the attic for the last 40? If they've been there that long, no one's going to miss them. Clear it out. You'd be amazed how much space you can clear in a lodge and how different that lodge will feel to the new guy coming in, looking around and seeing something that at least looks like should exist in the last 20 years and doesn't look like, well, someone raided an antique mall for all the worst possible decor you could think of. And that's coming from the couches at Waukesha, which were bad. That being said, thank you for joining me, Brother Chris Leakey, and the entire For the Light team on your quest to find more light through Masonry.
Are you interested in learning more about Freemasonry in Wisconsin? Visit wisconsinmasons.org to learn more about Masonry and access further educational content and more light. Once again, that address is wimasons.org. Any questions, comments, or suggestions, please email us at education@wisconsinmasons.org. And thank you for listening.